Nobody knows what happened to Nolan. Nobody remembers what happened. He went into the woods with a girl and we don't know what happened. So why did y'all leave him? Because I needed to be known that the one fact that we got for sure is they didn't report that baby missing until they got back home. They didn't call when they were getting ready to pack up the boat and come back home and realize, hey, we can't find Nolan. We've been looking for him for an hour. Come help us find him. They didn't report it until they got back home.
So the same thing that happened to Nolan Wells almost happened to me. I think I was like 22 years old working at Texas Roadhouse. You know what I mean? Young, silly. Forgot a couple of the things that my granddaddy told me when I was growing up. I thought these people were my friends. Another lesson my grandparents taught me when I was younger is that you don't have any friends. You know what I mean? You really do not. Like, my siblings were always my friends, and I learned that. At any rate, I signed up to go on this, little trip with these people. They let us know, okay, so we're gonna get up on the bank right here, and then we're gonna go see the waterfall. So I'm like, oh, okay, so but what we gonna do at the waterfall? You know what I mean? Because I'm vibing, but at the same time, I'm not stupid. And they was like, we're just gonna look at the, sit there, light a fire, smoke some more, drink some more. And I'm like, oh, okay. So we get to the little spot where we pull up the canoes, we anchor them off and whatnot, and then they tell us, okay, so this little piece of water right here, we got to swim across that to get to the waterfall. So I get halfway through the water and I realize that, and I'm losing my strength slowly but surely. And at this point in time, I am calling out for help. No music is playing at this time. You know what I mean? None. Yeah, everybody was rambunctious, excited, whatever, but you could clearly hear me out there in the woods. It's still daylight. So I am screaming that I can't make it. Somebody please help me. They turn around, several of them look at me, say, you can do it, come on, let's go. And they continue to walk off. At this point in time, I have already said my prayers and have already decided that I'm going to meet my maker. I scream one more time, I am going to drown, and I went down. I don't know can't remember who was and what just made them decide to change their mind and come back, but one person jumped in that water, grabbed me, pulled me up onto the bank, and mind you, they didn't do anything else after that and continued on their way. As young black children, the same lesson that I'm sure you're telling all your children now, do not be the only one. And it really doesn't matter how people feel about that, because the concern is preservation of life. So for some reason, God saw fit to not allow me to lose my life that day. And for some reason, God called Nolan home. So I will say that despite what anybody feels about how you feel about the situation, please have that conversation with your children. And that's all I'm going to say. Rest in peace, Nolan Wells, and to his entire family.
You already know his name. You've probably already watched 3 other videos about him. But stick with this one, because there are pieces of the Nolan Wells case that keep getting glossed over. And by the end, you'll understand why this thing refuses to die down, even as officials keep saying there's nothing to see. Here's where things actually stand right now, not where they stood 2 days ago. The state autopsy happened. It's done. And officials still haven't told the public what it says. Toxicology could take another 2 weeks. Meanwhile, the family flew Nolan's body to Washington, D.C. for a second independent autopsy, and attorney Ben Crump says he expects those results any day. 2 exams, 2 labs, 2 very different chains of custody. And right now, only one side is spoken. Start with something small that keeps getting buried under everything else. Nolan's phone wasn't on him when he was found. It wasn't on the island at all. It was recovered on the boat, the same boat that left without him. Think about that for a second. If you're an 18-year-old planning to hang back on a barrier island, waiting for a different ride home later that night, your phone is the one thing you don't leave behind. It's your lifeline. It's how the next group finds you. Crump has called this detail very implausible, and nobody, not the sheriff's office, not the friends, not anyone connected to that boat, has gone on record explaining how or why it ended up back with the group that drove away. That question is still just sitting there.
Just from where you sit, what are the biggest unanswered questions so far about this case?
Obviously, the biggest question is what happened to Nolan Wells. I think the reason this case has caught such fire is because they see the pictures, they see the video, and they're saying, hold on, you're trying to tell us just accept this an accident and sweep it under the rug? His mother, Christine, his father, Elmo, say, no, they will not allow that to happen. His friends, his community. I mean, he was a good kid. He was beloved. He was a college athlete. He had everything going for him. And so to go on that island for 4th of July celebration and then not to come back is what is concerning everybody, especially when you hear the contradictions.
Before any of this became a story about a boat and a bilge pump, Nolan was with someone else entirely. The incident commander from the United Cajun Navy, the volunteer group that flew search planes over Horn Island for 2 straight days, said publicly that Nolan was last seen talking to a girl on the north end of the island. Not the guy friends, not the boat group, a completely different person with a completely different vantage point on his final hour. Her mother has confirmed her daughter was there with him. And since then? Almost nothing. No public statement from the daughter herself. No detail about what she told investigators, if she told them anything at all. In a case with this much noise, that silence is loud.
Can you walk us through the timeline from the moment that Nolan was reported missing?
Sure. So to the best of my knowledge, again, I didn't get a call till that next day. As I appreciate, late that evening, Nolan was on the beach. The vessel that he came with left. And from there, we don't know what happened, right? Again, I'm just a volunteer, I'm running volunteer operations. I'm not law enforcement. So what happened really isn't what I'm looking for. What I look for a search is that last known location, and then specifics about the area or specifics about the person. Knowing that northwest corner of Horn Island was what we call the LKL, last known location. From there, we looked at the weather conditions, tidal conditions, wind conditions to come up with a plan, come up with a grid on what we could do. As within 30 to 45 minutes of when I got notification of him missing from the family and then from the mother, we had surface vessels, that's boats, that were in the area starting to search. We also had 2 drones that were in the air, as well as boots on the ground on the island doing a manual walk to look for Nolan there. That next day, yesterday, we had at daylight 4 vessels, 2 more people, as well as a fixed-wing aircraft in the air that started 6:15-ish, 6:30.
Then there's the footage. You've seen it, or some version of it. Shaky boat camera, a crowd on the beach, and audio that sounds like people arguing. TMZ had the first version. Now there's a second one going around with the audio cleaned up, enhanced, and it's pulling views all over again with people trying to pick out who's yelling and what they're yelling about. Here's the part most people skip past. The sheriff's office isn't just reviewing what's already public. They've put out their own request, specifically asking for original, unedited footage from the northwest tip of the island, specifically anything showing an altercation or argument. Read between the lines there. That tells you the footage flooding your feed isn't necessarily the full picture, and it might not even be the most important piece investigators are sitting on. What hasn't been confirmed by anyone is whether that viral clip was filmed on July 4th at all, or whether it has anything to do with Nolan. This next part is where it gets complicated, because you've got 2 accounts of the same afternoon, and they don't match, and nobody involved has directly addressed the other version. Version 1 comes from Ashley Cole. She's a sitting local judge, and her son Warren was one of the friends on that boat. She posted publicly that the group's boat started taking on water because of a bilge pump problem. They made the call to head back around 4:30, and Nolan chose, on his own, to stay behind and catch a ride with a different group later. Simple, clean, nobody's fault. Version 2 is what Ben Crump has been hinting at for days. He's talked about inconsistencies between the friends' accounts. He's mentioned reports of an argument, maybe yelling, before the group left the island. He hasn't laid out every detail publicly, but he's made it clear he doesn't think the story is as tidy as a bilge pump and a solo decision to stay. Neither version has been proven false. Both are out there right now, sitting side by side, and that's exactly why several of the friends who were on that island have reportedly lawyered up since this went public, with some locking down their social media. On its own, that doesn't prove anything. People get attorneys during active investigations all the time, especially once cameras and national reporters show up. But it's part of why this story hasn't cooled off the way a routine drowning case usually would. Here's something you need to hear plainly, because a lot of coverage skips it. Sheriff John Ledbetter has said more than once that investigators currently believe Nolan drowned, and that so far, they have not found evidence of foul play. That's not nothing. That's the actual position of the people running this investigation today, as you're watching this. At the same time, the case remains open, active, and the sheriff's office keeps stressing they're treating it like they would any other death. No shortcuts, no special treatment either direction. So hold both of those facts in your head at once. Official suspicion points to drowning. And 4 separate questions, the phone, the girl, the video, and the conflicting stories, remain completely unresolved.
You mentioned earlier there are some contradictions.
Yes.
What gives you confidence or perhaps concern about the investigation so far?
Well, the fact that they continue to tell the family that we don't see any evidence of any foul play, even though you have students who recorded an altercation while they were on the boats of argument where you had Nolan and somebody yelling at one another on the boat. So that's an issue. And then you have the young lady make a statement and she says, well, Nolan and I finished talking and Nolan said he was going back to the boat. And then the boys on the boat said, no, Nolan told them he was going to stay with her. And so they are conflicting. She's saying he went and got on the boat. They saying he didn't get on the boat. So which is it? And all we know is Nolan is dead.
You can't talk about this case honestly without talking about this part. Nolan was black. The friend group he was with was white. Crump has drawn that comparison directly, pointing to other cases where he felt investigations into a black victim moved slower or got less scrutiny than they should have. That's a real concern, and it's one plenty of people are raising in good faith. On the other hand, the local NAACP chapter, while staying closely engaged in this case, has specifically urged the public not to jump to conclusions before the facts come in. A Mississippi congressman has weighed in too, publicly calling this a tragedy and pushing law enforcement toward a full and transparent process. Race doesn't change what the evidence eventually shows, but it's a huge part of why so many people are demanding this investigation be thorough instead of quiet, and why every new detail gets picked apart the second it surfaces. It's easy to get lost in the theories and forget there's a family actually grieving in the middle of this. Nolan's mother, Christine Wansley, has asked repeatedly for privacy while she processes losing her son, calling him a special soul who was always willing to lift people up. His grandfather has said he doesn't understand how an island searched one day could produce his grandson's body the next morning. A GoFundMe for funeral costs blew past $200,000 within days, describing him as a beloved son, brother, and teammate whose life touched more people than most. His high school principal remembers him as hardworking and kind. His college football coach called him the kind of teammate every program hopes for. None of that resolves a single one of the open questions in this case. But it's exactly why so many people care this much about getting the answers right.
He was looking forward to getting an NIL deal with Division I football. He had everything going for them himself, and his family just can't believe that he's gone. His mother, Christina, is in constant depression back. My baby is gone. His father's trying to be strong, but obviously he's trying to explain to Nolan's younger brothers and sisters, what happened, Daddy? What happened?
Can you clarify for us what was going on with his cell phone?
Yeah, and that's something that's really troubling to his family as well. You know, the guys on the boat, they said Nolan stayed, but they took his cell phone. That's not adding up to them. The fact that then when the family gets the cell phone back, Lindsay, they're saying they are trying to understand why they're deleted messages. And so it's very concerning to them.
So let's be precise about where we are right now, today. The phone situation, still unexplained. The viral video, still unverified, still not tied to Nolan in any confirmed way. The girl who was with him last, still mostly silent in public. And the biggest one, what really happened between that bilge pump and Nolan being left alone on that island, still two competing stories, and nobody has proven either one wrong. What breaks this open first is almost certainly going to be that independent autopsy. Crump has said results could land any day. If it shows something the state's exam didn't catch, every one of those 4 loose threads gets a lot more serious, fast. If it comes back consistent with a straightforward drowning, the pressure shifts hard onto the online theories, the enhanced audio, and the story that's built up around a handful of unanswered questions. Either way, this isn't over, and you're clearly someone who wants to actually know what happens next, instead of just reacting to whatever clip is trending that day. So do the simple thing. Subscribe now, so the second that autopsy result drops, you're not finding out from some rushed 30-second recap. You're getting it here, with everything you actually need to understand it.